Hello, and welcome to the Q&A with BTQ on the topic of post-quantum cryptography and blockchain, hosted by Blockday, and we've got some guest speakers from blockchain at UBC here with us. So just a quick little agenda of what's going to be going on here. This is the first bullet point here, the welcome and opening remarks. So welcome, and after that, we're going to do some speaker introductions, have a little panel discussion, get some Q&A from the audience, and then just some closing remarks. And we've got a POAP. And for those of you who don't know what that is, you'll know soon. It's one of my favorite things. So just a couple things before we get rolling here. Open kind of conversation and hoping to get some audience participation. So if you guys have any questions about the topic or about any of the things that the speakers are discussing, you can feel free to type your questions in the chat. And then later on during this kind of audience Q&A portion, you'll also be free to unmute yourself and ask a question via voice if you're comfortable doing that. Just remember the meeting's being recorded. Yeah, and so just to show you who we've got here with us, we have a couple researchers from blockchain at UBC. We've got Dr. Chang Lu and Mohammad Jalalzai with us. And then we also have Chen-Mou Cheng from BTQ, their Chief Scientific Officer. And we're going to have a hopefully entertaining and intellectual discussion on some post-quantum blockchain and cryptography stuff. So that's basically the presentation, and let us dive into it. So the first thing that I would love for us to do is just get some introductions from our speakers. So let's start with Dr. Lu. So you could just tell us like a little bit about yourself, your background, your area of research, and kind of your area of expertise within the blockchain space.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Chang Lu. I currently work as a research manager at Blockchain UBC, University of British Columbia. Previously, I was a postdoc research fellow at Blockchain UBC. On my current role, I focus on industry partnerships and managing research projects for the research cluster. Previously, when I was a postdoc, I studied blockchain adoption in healthcare from the business perspective. And I did my PhD in strategic management and organization at the University of Alberta in the School of Business. And back then, my research focus was on innovation adoption in highly institutionalized settings. So I was trained as an organizational theorist with a specific focus on organizational strategy. So in the past few years, I have published several articles and book chapters, and also I have a book coming up next year that is focused on blockchain adoption in healthcare. But as I mentioned, my background is in business. So I guess today my contribution to this conversation is going to be from the business perspective. And I will leave the hardcore computer science conversation to Dr. Jalalzai and Chen. Yeah, that's about me. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And Mohammad, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your background area of expertise. Unmute yourself if you.
Thanks, Amelia. Yeah. Thank you. I am my research work at a UBC involved developing, designing secure and efficient consensus algorithms for blockchain. So there's always a tension between the security and performance, and improving both of them, both of these properties is quite challenging. So how we can achieve that, because consensus layer is the core of blockchain, and that's what I do. That's what I did for my PhD, and that's what I do for my living now. Yeah, that's in short. But I also work on how we can design not only the efficient and secure, but fair algorithms. This means fair algorithms, designing fair algorithms involve how we make sure that the incentives are distributed in a fair manner, so that malicious nodes cannot take advantage of the algorithm and increase their stake in the network, which will eventually result in collapse of the network, because if the stake of the malicious nodes increases in the network, then basically they take the control of the network. So this is also another aspect of the blockchain systems that I work on to improve. So basically what I do is work at the core layer of the blockchain and try to make it secure and efficient. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Cool. And last but not least, Chen-Mou, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? Good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me here today. My name is Chen-Mou Cheng. I'm the CSO of BTQ. But before I joined BTQ earlier this year, I've been teaching in Japan and Taiwan and Germany for 15 years, mostly doing research on cryptography with a special emphasis on post-quantum cryptography. Right now, my job at my task at the BTQ is to kind of oversee the research and development and trying to provide a solution kind of that can provide security to various blockchain technologies against the quantum computers and as well as other threats. So our vision is to provide a long-term, maybe decades of security, making sure that all these blockchains will remain secure in the decades to come, and that's our mission at BTQ. Yeah, I guess that's a very brief introduction of myself. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, you three, for telling us a bit about yourselves. And I just wanted to say it's like just so great to have you all here. I think I speak for myself and everyone else here that blockchain is something that we're really passionate about, and the fact that you guys are just researching and utilizing it on such a high level and looking so far forward into the future with what this stuff can do and how to implement it in a correct, safe, long-term kind of way. I think it's just super cool to have you guys all here in the same Zoom room to have a little chat. And I kind of nerding out a bit here, but I think it's really awesome. So we're here to talk, specifically about the kind of the idea of post-quantum blockchain and cryptography, and also BTQ as a company and what they're doing in that space. But before we get into that, I think it might be good just to kind of set the stage a little bit, go back a little, and can we just kind of remind us what is this blockchain thing and what is so special about it, and kind of why should we care? So maybe Dr. Lu, you could start us off, and then Mohammed, you could kind of follow up just on that topic, generally, what is blockchain?
Sure. So simply put, blockchain is a peer-to-peer network where transactions are validated through some kind of consensus mechanisms, and the advantages of blockchain will include better security and better privacy, and also in some user cases, blockchain enables users to control their data in a way that it has never been achieved in the past. With blockchain applications, a lot of times you can build a token economy within an application, which could incentivize people to engage with the application. And blockchain as a peer-to-peer network could also function as the technological infrastructure to support business ecosystem. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, that's the bit from me, and I will pass it over to Mohammad.
Thank you, Dr. Lu. I guess you explained it pretty broad way, amazingly. So, but I would just add one point to Dr. Lu's discussion, that one of the most important use case that the users that we want to apply, use cases that we want to apply blockchain is to provide trust. So currently, any system or any services that we use, we just trust that service provider or that service that's controlled by a single entity. Blockchain is there to provide a trust in a trustless environment. So that's one of the important property of the blockchain is, so when you don't have to trust anyone in the network, but you can trust the network. So as long as majority of the nodes in the network behave do not behave maliciously, it is guaranteed that you will achieve correct computation. The integrity of data is guaranteed, and if you have some sort of privacy implemented over the top of the network, that will be preserved. So one of the main contribution that blockchain provides us to our society is the trust when there is no trust among the participants to interact. So that's the main point, that the services that require trust, and you do not want to trust a single entity. I don't know, maybe your bank, maybe somewhere governments are corrupted in some countries, and then they cannot, and then they might control the services and systems there. So, or maybe some big giant tech companies control the systems, and they can use the data, or they have access to services that they provide to the people. They have the full control of those servers and computers. So, but if you cannot trust those entities or some services, maybe you are fine with your privacy or accessing different services with some entities, but not with others, then this is where the blockchain comes. With the blockchains, you may pay some cost with performance or some additional cost with computation, but then you can get significant trust guarantees, as well as security and privacy. So that's what, in my opinion, blockchain adds to our society. Its main contribution is the blockchain network can be a center of an anchor of the trust, while you don't have to trust any party in the network. And then you can build any service that you want over the top of it. It's just an infrastructure that provides you that trust service, and then you can do whatever you want. Well, yeah, I guess that's all from my side, and anyone else can add to that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very thorough. I think like the main takeaway there is this idea that blockchain provides us with this network that is highly secure and has, like you say, this anchor of trust, right? And then the privacy as well, and all these other amazing features that come along with that. But then the elephant in the room here is this quantum computing thing that we're here to talk a little bit about. So we have all these wonderful properties that blockchain brings us, but then apparently quantum computing is something that threatens those properties and perhaps renders blockchain as we know it today to be almost obsolete. So maybe Chen-Mou, can you start us off talking about like kind of what is quantum computing and like a basic level, and then how does it get to this point where it can start to be this existential threat to blockchains today?
Sure. Yeah. So thanks, Chang and Mohammad, for the nice summary. I guess I'm not actually an expert in quantum computing, but my understanding is a new paradigm of computing. So based on quantum physics. So for certain classes of problems, we have a much more efficient quantum algorithms, meaning that these algorithms cannot be executed by classical computers that we have today. They have to run, because they use some quantum physics there, they have to run on new quantum computers. And once that's a reality, these algorithms can solve certain classes of problems much more efficiently than classical computers. So I guess that's a kind of a working, at least when I work with post-quantum cryptography, that's kind of the kind of threat that I have in mind from quantum computers. Now, as Mohammad has said, one of the kind of property that blockchains kind of provide is to build a trust machine, to have a network that the components of this network may not be trusted. So we don't necessarily trust the components in this network, but as a whole, somehow, if under certain mild assumption that most participants, they are not malicious, they just want the say their self-interest, they want to maximize their economic gain, then we can trust the whole network. So this is very different from the traditional trust model we have with say our banks, right? So we trust our banks and vice versa. Our banks also trust us in some sense because we know each other. We kind of know each other to a certain extent. So we kind of the trust in the traditional institutions are kind of constructed or built more or less on this interperson relation. And of course, to some degree, when you have a more complicated system, then you will have some kind of indirect trust. I trust this institution because most of my friends, most of my family, people I know, they also trust them. And that situation is completely changed when we move to a network like a blockchain, right? So again, here we don't necessarily trust any participant there. So how do we establish trust? So there are several mechanisms, and one of them is to use public key cryptography. Simply put, it's a way to establish ownership. So who owns which assets? So in a traditional, like say banking industry, we have accounts with with some banks that we trust. We have some mutual trust, and the ownership is somewhat based on this mutual trust. If we don't have this trust, then we cannot establish this ownership. But again, on a blockchain, we don't have that. So we have to use some technology to establish this ownership, and that is public key cryptography. And more precisely, it's the digital signature scheme that we are using here to establish ownership. So it's very similar. It's somewhat analogous to the traditional signature that we sign a piece of document or a piece of paper, in the sense that in such a system, possessing a private key that is secret kind of helps us to make sure that this signature really comes from someone who claims to be. So someone who claims to own a piece of asset, for example, and so this ownership has to be established by digital signature. And a quantum computer can break classical digital signature algorithm used by pretty much most blockchains today. So that poses a threat, existential threat to blockchains, right? Because if so I would argue that even before we have before anybody demonstrates this this is feasible, because whenever there's some dispute, I can always claim that I might be a victim of some quantum attack. So if I say initiate some transaction and later on I regret it, so right now the situation is getting to a more and more kind of uncertain situation, because as the quantum technology is making a lot of progress every day, so the claim that certain transaction that I initiated is actually fraudulent. It's done by some attacker who secretly built a large quantum computer to crack the algorithm used, and then therefore I want to deny, I want to retract, I want to cancel this transaction. That kind of situation will bring uncertainty to the network, and then eventually the trust build up will collapse. So I would argue that this is not only an existential threat in the long run, but it can happen sooner than we expect. That's kind of my kind of a basic explanation of this quantum threat posed to blockchains.
That's really interesting. I knew it was kind of this issue that was going to be a problem, however many years down the road, but I never really thought of it that way, that people can already start to claim that they would have been victim of such an attack, right? Because the idea is you can derive any private key from a public key with enough of the quantum computing power, right? So okay, so then that's the problem. So BTQ is the solution, right? So could you tell us a little bit about what BTQ is doing to try to prevent this catastrophe from occurring, or at least your part in this?
Sure. So again, we are not alone in kind of working toward a solution to secure to provide long-term security against quantum computer in the blockchain, in and outside of the blockchain context. But I think we are the first that focuses on this problem in a blockchain context. So outside of blockchain context, there have been many cryptographers, my colleagues around the world. We have been working for decades, at least 15 years, maybe even 20 years, trying to find out a solution or a few plausible solutions to counter this kind of attack, this kind of quantum attack. So for example, I think there is this annual conference that cryptographers like myself, we gather together and discuss this the latest research. It's called BTQ Crypto. I think it's been there for about definitely more than 10 years, because I organized one of the earliest one in Taiwan back in 2011. So that was 11 years ago. What I want to say is that we BTQ is a piece of a bigger puzzle. So we're trying to leverage all this nice research done by the top cryptographers around the world, and we try to apply them to blockchains and also solve some of the challenges when we try to apply these techniques to a blockchain context. For example, I will give you a concrete example. So most of these candidates, so most of these so-called post-quantum algorithms, they tend to have either larger keys or larger ciphertext / signatures, or both for some candidates. So so there's some argument that why it is the case. In some sense, so it's probably not a good idea to go into the detail there, but I would say that's probably the case for most post-quantum algorithms. And therefore, when we try to use this kind of algorithm in blockchains like a Bitcoin or Ethereum, if we just replace the digital signature algorithm with, say, the newly standardized, one of the newly standardized algorithms by NIST earlier last month, then we will immediately encounter a problem. So the sheer size will grow by at least one order of magnitude or two if we just replace this algorithm. So this means that instead of having a few hundred of gigabytes of hard drive, you may need to have terabytes of hard drive in order to run a full node, because you need to store all these transaction logs which contain public keys and signatures. So at BTQ, we're developing solutions to counter that problem. We're trying to aggregate a bunch of signatures so that the average size occupied by each individual signature is smaller, is somewhat comparable to the classical algorithm. So that's one of the solutions we're working on. And there are several other problems that we either encountered or envisioned that we will have when we try to secure blockchains with post-quantum cryptography. And we have that's why we have our staff working on this day and night, and hopefully we can provide a more complete and secure solutions for securing blockchains against quantum attacks. Yeah, so I guess that's a brief summary of the work that we're doing at BTQ.
It's fascinating. Before I go on with any questions, I wonder if Dr. Lu or Mohammad, if you guys have any thoughts or comments or questions on this topic.
Yeah, so I actually have a very quick question to Cheng. So in your experience, let's say if we now have quantum attacks to blockchain networks, what would be the part of the blockchain solution that is going to be mostly at risk? Would that be of course, I think the security is going to be at risk, but how about the consistent mechanisms, and how about token economy? So when we experience quantum attacks, does it mean that whether it's proof of stake or whether it's proof of work, all those kind of consensus mechanisms, which are also incentive mechanism for people to participate in the network, would also be attacked? Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I didn't go into, I didn't cover all the aspects. Indeed, quantum computers can have impact on several aspects that Dr. Lu, you just mentioned. But I would say by far the most significant impact would be on the digital signature algorithm, because there we already have quantum algorithms that have exponential speed up. So Shor's algorithm can break elliptic curve cryptography that we use today on most blockchains in polynomial time. So that's really a huge jump. But there are also other quantum algorithms that affect, say, hash functions and also consensus protocols. So we need to address all of them. But in some sense, they are easier, I should quote easier, because, for example, the attack against hash algorithm, typically, I think the best attack we know today is to use Grover's algorithm. And the countermeasure to that, a simple countermeasure to that, is to simply double the hash output, the length of the hash output. So to some extent, it's again, easier to solve problem. And there are also attacks against the, say, consensus protocol. A token economy, I guess I'm not aware, but certainly there's this possibility. So we need to consider all of this, and together we have to upgrade our blockchains to counter all these attacks in order to maintain the trust that the users have on the network, which is kind of the source of all the value that this technology, this blockchain technology, can bring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the reason why I asked the question is if consistent mechanism will also be a great risk, and if the entire token economy is going to be attacked by quantum computing capabilities, and then I guess the business case of blockchain is going to lose its strength, right? And
exactly.
And then I guess that would pose a serious threat to a lot of the funding activities in the blockchain space, and also, I think a lot of the cryptocurrencies would probably also experience a decrease in value. So that will have serious business implications.
Sure. If I may, maybe I can say something a bit more optimistic. So we've been talking about these threats for a while, but I also want to say that quantum computing, the technology itself, again, I'm not an expert, but from what I know, it's not a kind of for example, there's no evidence that quantum computing can solve all the problems in all the NP problems. So if we can solve all the NP problems, then we have basically no cryptography. We will be out of job as cryptographers. So, but fortunately, there's still no evidence that quantum computing can do that. And similarly for many problems, like consensus, like some problems related to token economy. Despite all these brilliant physicists, all these computer scientists, they work diligently, but still, as of today, we still don't have a lot of kind of really breakthrough algorithms, meaning similar, the kind of speed up, the exponential speed up we have had with, say, Shor's algorithm. This is very rare case, and unfortunately, the digital signature algorithm used by today's blockchain is the victim, is one of the victims. So that's quite unfortunate. But aside from that, it seems still kind of safe. I don't want to be too optimistic, but but again, so I don't see. So in short, I don't see quantum computing can say destroy the work we have done on blockchain.
Okay.
I don't see that. There's no evidence for that. So that's the kind of my optimistic observation.
Oh, that's great to know. Thank you.
Indeed, yeah.
You mentioned about the storage cost, and how about the computation cost of the quantum resistant cryptography?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. So so far, so the short answer is it depends. So some post-quantum algorithms are actually more efficient than, say, RSA, even comparable to ECC. So some of them are really fast, but some of them also have some more computation overhead. But it varies. It depends on the algorithm. So there's no, I don't see a trend there that adopting these post-quantum algorithms will definitely increase the computational cost. I don't see that. But for storage size, like I mentioned, there's a good argument that why we probably will not have a post-quantum algorithm that's as efficient as ECC, for example, elliptic curve crypto, in terms of storage size, because ECC is really compact. If you look at the key size, if you look at the signature size, the ciphertext size, they're all very small. And that's very unlikely based on some, again, I think it's still a hypothesis. It's not proven in any case, but my hunch is that based on all these research results, it will be very difficult, very unlikely that we can have that kind of space efficient post-quantum algorithm. So we have to pay a price in terms of storage. It seems inevitable to me.
Thank you.
Sure.
Loving the discussion, everyone. At this point, I just wanted to open it up a bit to see if anybody else in here had any comments or questions on this topic. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or just type something in the chat and I'll ask it for you.
Yeah, I'll just quickly ask a slightly stupid question, if I may. Maybe it's already answered in one of the discussions, but essentially, if the only thing that is kind of under attack is the public key cryptography, right? And public key cryptography is sort of used, obviously, not just in blockchain, but outside of blockchain. But basically everything when it comes to securing information transfer through the internet, right? So, this is more than just blockchain? This is the entire system of cryptography. Is that correct?
Can I answer this question? Okay, good. Yeah. So first, this is not a stupid question. This is a very good question. So, yes, the short answer is yes. Public key crypto is used everywhere, and that's why NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology of the United States, they have put forth a competition. Like they want to select some post-quantum algorithms and standardize them. Actually, they just announced earlier last month, in early July, that they have selected 4 algorithms, 4 public key algorithms for standardization. And indeed, that will be used across pretty much all technology sectors, not only blockchains. So I want to emphasize again, at BTQ, our focus is, so we will not invent new algorithms. So we work with all NIST, with all these top cryptographers around the world, and we're trying to use the research results and also standardized algorithms and use them in blockchain and solve the problems that one might have when applying these techniques to blockchain. So I guess yes. So that's my answer. And indeed, this is in general a very important kind of effort in the next few years. So we need to, in some sense, replace all the pipes in our houses, and then it will be a major engineering effort to upgrade our infrastructure to post-quantum security. Yeah.
I'm wondering, so you mentioned that there was this like this conference that you were hosting back in like 2011, and on like the topic of like quantum computing and cryptography. So this is like obviously people have known about this issue for a long time, and you're working to solve it. So and you mentioned that it's kind of an urgent thing to start figuring out like today, because it is such a large undertaking to, as you say, like upgrade the pipes. So I'm just thinking about like current blockchains being developed today, like even something as mainstream as Ethereum. I'm wondering if you know, like, are they, for like just take Ethereum as an example, are they thinking about this when they're developing right now? And like, if not, why, if we knew about this, over a decade ago, why would blockchains not be working to kind of incorporate this quantum resistant technology now, if it's going to be such an issue to incorporate later?
Yes, that's a great question. So first I want to say that we're not alone in kind of when it comes to quantum threat opposed to blockchains. So, for example, the Ethereum community, they're also aware of this. Actually, if you look at the Vitalik's latest roadmap, I think that he puts there like a PQ everything somewhere on the roadmap. So definitely they're aware of this kind of threat, and as well as many other blockchains, as many other communities. So, but I guess I don't know exactly why they haven't put so much emphasis. Perhaps most of them think that this is a long-term threat, so they have more urgent, business or urgent fires that they want to put out. So I guess this depends on the community, on the committee, for example. They need to prioritize tasks according to some standard, right? So, but I would say that first of all, it's on the roadmap of most blockchains, indeed. So most major blockchains, they have either somewhere down the stream they want to have post-quantum security. That is the case. And second of all, I think we have a slightly different perspective. We think, like I mentioned, I think this is not really a long-term. So this is really not a long-term threat per se, because first there could be trust issue already before someone has concretely demonstrated that this is doable. Probably way before that, there will be rumors. Oh, maybe the Russians, maybe the Chinese, they have built this secret quantum computer and stole all these bitcoins. Or they stole Satoshi's bitcoins, for example. So I think this kind of uncertainty will certainly have some impact on the trust, which is central to blockchains. And second of all, we focus on long-term security. And like I said, I think it would take a lot of time to replace all the pipes, all the infrastructure. So I think we want to get there early. We want to start early so that we don't want to see the fires burning in your front yard, and you're thinking now, oh, okay, where's my fire extinguisher? Where should we go, right? So we want to get prepared early. That's our mission at BTQ. Yeah, but certainly I think we share this. So many people are aware of this quantum threat. It's just I guess it's a matter of a prioritization.
Yeah, makes sense. I just wanted to pull up the roadmap you're talking about here. So I do see in the very last section of the roadmap here, in under longer term extras, I see post-quantum everything. So it's kind of like a side note to the side note, you know, like the splurge, the final step here is the miscellaneous but important extras. And then here we have post-quantum everything in the longer term extras of the extra section. So it's like you say, a matter of prioritization, and it seems to be like one of the very last things on their mind, which is kind of what you're talking about, where if once we're at that point, I feel like it's even harder to get to that point where we're upgrading these pipes. So it's just interesting to see that difference in opinion and prioritization, as you say. Yeah, so really cool.
If it's possible, I would like to sort of ask a question, a bit more BTQ focused, and I'm really curious. So Dr. Mohammad has talked about, you know, once you have this blockchain is the foundation layer, and then you can essentially, once you have this trust, once you trust this trustless network, you're able to build on top of it anything you want, right? So sky's the limit when it comes to building actual things. So when it comes to BTQ, when you're building a quantum proof blockchain system, is there going to be a fundamental difference for developers when they're developing on something that's quantum proof compared to something that's more classical computer focused like blockchain system? Is there going to be a fundamental difference, whether that's in terms of language, whether that's in terms of just the way, you know, the programming works? Just kind of throwing that out there.
Again, thank you. That's a great question. So ideally, I mean, the strategy at BTQ, we're trying to as seamless as possible. So we try to hide everything under the rug as much as we can. Simply because, you know, we're a small company, we cannot redo everything, right? We need to work with all these developers, all these talents around the world, and kind of rebuild all these fantastic applications on top of this new post-quantum, you know, quantum secure blockchains. So we need to work with a lot of developers. So ideally, we want to make everything look almost exactly the same, except we're using an upgraded algorithm. But that's the ideal case. Still, there will be cases where it's not possible to hide everything under the rug. So we try our best to make it look identical, but there will be some you know, bumps here and there, and hopefully most developers will be able to handle it. And we will have as seamless as possible transition to a quantum secure world. Yeah.
So I guess, like you said, oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I just want to add. So again, so my personal kind of so I would say that the most difference, the most significant difference that most developers and perhaps some users will notice is the size. So a lot of things will become at least significantly larger when we move to a post-quantum scenario. Not only the digital signature, but also, for example, we're also working on zero knowledge proofs, so which is another in itself a very hot topic now. So there are post-quantum zero knowledge proof techniques, and we're working on some of them. There we also see the same trend. So with say ZK snarks with Plonk, you have really tiny compact proofs, which we're trying our best, but we're still having kind of 10 or even 100 times larger proofs when we move to post-quantum proof system. And I think that will be with us. You know, we just, I don't see how we can compress it further. So that's probably going to be like that. And then developers will need to live with such large proofs, as well as the users. They will see all these large proofs flying around. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a question for Chen. So are you doing a layer 1 protocol that is resistant to quantum attacks? Is that the main project that you're working on right now?
Yes, we want to. So we're building one, yes, and we're building a proof of concept at one chain. We just want to demonstrate that this is feasible, and what kind of performance you can expect, and what kind of trade-off we have made, what kind of solutions we can provide. But our ultimate goal is to help all the blockchains. We cannot be the only kind of post-quantum chain. That wouldn't make sense, right? We need an ecosystem with so all of us. So because security is as weak as the as strong as the weakest link, right? So once I think today we have already seen a lot of many interconnected chains, right? And often we see attack against one chain that can so the effect can quickly propagate to other chains. So no one is safe until everybody is safe. That's our vision. So we want to help all the blockchains. And eventually, I think all the blockchains will need to upgrade to post-quantum solutions anyway, in the long run. So we want to get the solutions ready when they're ready to move, to migrate.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds exciting. Yeah. Thank you very much
Thank you
for your endeavors.
Thank you.
So we're coming up on an hour here. So probably looking to wrap this up pretty soon. Just wondering if anybody else has any final questions or comments. Going once, twice, and okay. Okay, cool. So I guess just a quick final question for you, Chen-Mou. How could like an average person maybe be more aware of this problem? And is there anything like the average person can do to help be a part of this solution to what is obviously a very large problem? Or is this something that's only the PhDs can tackle?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think to some extent, all of us can participate in a sense that, well, this is a market, right? And we as consumers, as users, we also have a say. We can, for example, by paying attention to the development, to the latest development, and then ask our vendors, ask our solution providers, what is your strategy on, defending against this potential quantum attack? It may come in 10 years, it may come in 20 years, it may come in 30 years, but asking for a solution, and maybe not a solution today, but asking for a plan. What's your plan? I think that's a good start. And together, I think that will raise the awareness. And then when a lot of people put their minds to put their talents, I think we can solve almost any problem. So I think raising the awareness is certainly that's something everybody can do.
Cool. And yeah, hopefully then we've done our small part by having this little chat here today. Cool. Okay, so I think we'll end it here. One thing that I would like to do is share my screen quickly. So what I've got here is the Magic POAP dispenser. Those of you who don't know, POAPs are like NFTs that are a record of your attendance at an event. And I have created a little POAP So if anyone's interested, you can scan this QR code. You should be able to just use your phone there, and you will get a little NFT that is commemorative of your attendance of being here today. And that will be with you forever, which I think is what, honestly, is one of my favorite NFT use cases. I think it's really cool. So I'll just leave that up there. And I just wanted to thank all of you for being here, and to our speakers for joining us and letting us tune into this very interesting conversation about post-quantum cryptography and blockchain. And really excited to see what BTQ gets up to in the future in fighting this threat.